You're standing in the middle of an endless, sun-scorched grassland. No water in sight, no shade. The nearest river might be days away on foot. How would you even survive a single afternoon out here, let alone your whole life? For ancient humans living across Africa's vast savannas, this wasn't a survival horror scenario. It was just home. So how did they actually pull it off? The African savanna isn't just hot, it's a place of brutal extremes. Daytime temperatures can soar past 40 degrees Celsius, but once the sun goes down, temperatures can drop close to freezing, sometimes within just a few hours, and water sources can be scattered dozens of miles apart, especially during the dry season. So the two biggest threats out here aren't lions or leopards, they're heat and thirst. Here's the first trick. Ancient desert dwellers learned to read the land itself like a map. A dry riverbed isn't actually dry underneath. Dig down through the sand in the right spot, and there's often damp, cool sand just below the surface, sometimes even a small pool. Some groups mastered something called a sip well, digging a narrow hole, then using a hollow reed as a straw to drink water filtered right through the sand. Second trick, some plants are basically walking canteens. Certain wild melons store enough water inside to keep a person alive for days. Third trick, animals know where the water is. Following fresh tracks at dawn or dusk often leads straight to a hidden water hole. Even elephants helped out. They dig their own water holes searching for underground water, and plenty of other animals, including humans, learned to use them too. And fourth, some groups stored water in hollowed-out ostrich eggs, sealed and buried at secret spots along their usual walking routes. Basically a network of secret water stashes, buried across the land, remembered by heart for generations. No GPS, no app, just memory, passed down from parent to child, generation after generation. And here's the wild part. In extreme desert heat, the human body can only survive about 3 days without water. 3 days? That's how little margin for error they had, and they still made it work, generation after generation. And it wasn't just humans who figured out clever tricks to survive out here. Nature had its own water hunting geniuses too. Take the sand grouse, a small desert bird that flies up to 60 kilometers just to find water, then soaks its belly feathers like a sponge. It flies all the way back to its thirsty chicks, who literally drink water squeezed straight out of their own father's feathers. And in some deserts, there's a tiny beetle that survives almost entirely on fog. It tilts its body at just the right angle at dawn, letting droplets collect and roll straight into its mouth. Ancient humans watched animals like these for generations, and some of that watching almost certainly shaped how they found water too. Finding water was only half the battle. The other half was surviving the heat itself. Humans are actually incredibly well built for heat, compared to almost every other large animal on the planet. We sweat far more efficiently than most animals, and our lack of thick body fur lets that sweat actually cool us down instead of getting trapped. But ancient humans didn't just rely on biology. During the hottest hours of the day, most activity simply stopped. Hunting, walking, working, all of it got pushed to the cooler hours, early morning and evening, right around sunset. It's the exact same reason so many desert cultures today still take a long midday rest. The strategy never really stopped working. Sometimes the smartest survival strategy is simply not fighting the heat head-on. But once the sun sets, the entire challenge flips completely upside down. That same open grassland with no shade to hide from the sun now offers nothing to block the cold either. Fire became absolutely essential, not just for cooking, but for warmth, light, and keeping predators at a safe distance. Someone almost always stayed awake through the night, keeping watch, feeding the fire, listening for anything moving in the dark. One night, the story goes, the watcher heard something in the grass just beyond the firelight, not the usual rustle of wind, but slow, deliberate footsteps circling closer. He didn't move. He didn't wake the others. He just quietly fed the fire a little higher, and waited. Whatever it was, it never came closer than the edge of the light. By morning, all that was left were a set of large paw prints circling the camp, and nothing more. Sleeping close together wasn't just about comfort. Body heat shared between people made a real difference on freezing nights. And predators were most active at night. Lions, hyenas, leopards fall far more dangerous once darkness fell. The fire wasn't just comfort. It was quite literally the line between life and death every single night. And every single time the fire held, dawn broke, the predators melted back into the grass, and the tribe woke up to see another sunrise. Which is probably why, even today, so many of us still find something deeply comforting about a fire at night. Okay, this is the part that genuinely broke my brain when I first read about it. Some ancient trackers could read a single footprint the way you'd read a paragraph of text. Skilled trackers could identify not just which animal made a track, but roughly how long ago it passed, which direction it was heading, and even how fast it was moving. Some trackers could even tell if the animal was injured, pregnant, or nervous, just from the shape and spacing of its footprints. This wasn't magic, it was thousands of hours of observation, passed down and refined across countless generations. In fact, in some tracking cultures, learning to read the land wasn't just useful, it was literally a rite of passage. Before being considered a full adult, a young tracker might be sent out to identify a set of tracks left days earlier by an elder, with the whole camp waiting to see if they passed. Get it right, and you'd proven you could keep yourself, and eventually your own family, alive out here. And it wasn't just about finding food. This same tracking skill helped ancient humans find hidden water sources too, by following animals heading toward it. In a world before GPS, before satellites, the ground itself was the map, and reading it fluently could mean the difference between life and death. There's something else worth knowing about thirst, and it's a little unsettling. Severe dehydration doesn't just weaken your body, it messes with your mind. As the body dries out, people can start experiencing confusion, and in extreme cases, hallucinations, seeing water, shade, even other people that simply aren't there. Experienced desert survivors learn to recognize the earliest warning signs in themselves, and to trust the group's judgment over their own once thirst started clouding their thinking. In a landscape this unforgiving, staying calm wasn't just a personality trait. It was a survival skill, trained and practiced like any other. If you've seen our video on ancient human strength, this next part might ring a bell. Remember persistence, hunting, chasing an animal on foot for hours until it simply collapses from exhaustion. Turns out, that same relentless endurance wasn't just for hunting dinner. It's the exact same skill that let ancient humans survive this brutal landscape in the first place. Catching food, and simply staying alive long enough to find the next drop of water. For ancient humans, it was often the exact same skill set, just pointed in a different direction. The line between hunter and survivor was thinner than you'd think. Everything we covered in that video, the endurance, the sweating, the stamina, it all comes back to this one landscape, this one challenge. In fact, some of the most detailed observations ever recorded of certain predator hunting behaviors came directly from tracker-guided fieldwork, knowledge no drone could have picked up alone. A water source that looked identical to a safe one from a distance could be a serious health risk close up, and only real experience could tell the difference. Of course, none of this was foolproof. Bad droughts could still wipe out even the best-known water spots. Here's a twist worth mentioning too. Finding water wasn't automatically a win. Not all water out here was safe to drink. In a place like this, knowledge wasn't just useful. It was survival currency, as valuable as any spear. When that happened, entire groups picked up and walked, sometimes for days, chasing rumors of water on the horizon. Groups with the deepest knowledge of their land simply had a massive advantage over those without it. In parts of the Kalahari today, expert trackers still practice these exact same skills, passed down, generation after generation, for thousands of years. Stagnant pools could carry parasites and diseases that were sometimes just as dangerous as thirst itself, slower, but just as deadly in the long run. It's a reminder that survival out here was never just about finding resources. It was about knowing which resources you could actually trust. A few trackers have even helped scientists document animal behaviors that were never recorded before, patterns only visible through this kind of deep, patient observation. Their reading of the land is sometimes more precise than the technology built to replace it. Here's something that might genuinely surprise you. This isn't just ancient history, so knowing which pools to avoid was just as important as knowing which ones to seek out. Another whole layer of memorized, hard-won knowledge. Water and shade weren't the only challenges out here, food was scarce too, and ancient diets on the savannah looked nothing like a modern grocery run. Some of these trackers now work directly alongside wildlife researchers, helping locate animals that even GPS collars and drones sometimes struggle to find. Insects were a genuinely major food source. Termites, grubs, and locusts are all packed with protein and fat, and some are still eaten as delicacies in parts of the world today. Small game mattered too. Tortoises, lizards, and ground-nesting birds' eggs were all far easier to catch than a fast-moving antelope, especially on a day when energy and water were both running low. And when meat was scarce, wild tubers and roots buried underground became a reliable backup. Some are surprisingly rich in both calories and moisture. And when the sun went down, ancient humans didn't lose their sense of direction, they just looked up instead. It wasn't glamorous, but a diet built on flexibility. Not one single food source meant a bad hunting day was rarely a life-threatening one. The night sky over the savannah, far from any city lights, is almost unbelievably bright, thousands of visible stars, arranged in patterns that repeat, night after night, year after year. Certain stars and constellations became reliable markers, pointing roughly toward north, or marking the passage of the seasons as they shifted position throughout the year. Some groups could even estimate roughly how much of the night had passed just by how far certain stars had traveled across the sky. It's a skill so precise that some traditional navigators, using nothing but starlight, could hold a course across open, featureless terrain for days without ever getting lost. None of this worked as a solo effort, either. Survival out here was fundamentally a team sport. Different members of a group often specialized in different skills. Some became exceptional trackers, others knew every edible plant in a 10-mile radius, others were the best storytellers, keeping morale and memory alive. A group with a wider range of specialized knowledge was simply more resilient than a group of generalists who each knew a little of everything. If the best tracker got sick, someone else could still find the way. If the best forager was injured, someone else already knew which plants were safe. In other words, cooperation wasn't just nice to have out here. It was, quite literally, a survival technology, just as important as fire or water. And that instinct to specialize, to rely on each other's different strengths, it's still baked into how modern human societies function today, thousands of years later. Every single piece of this, the water, the heat, the tracking, the teamwork, had to work together every single day for thousands of years, just for one ordinary life to continue. And somehow, it did, generation after generation, on a landscape that gives you nothing for free. So the next time you're out somewhere hot, reaching for your water bottle without a second thought, remember that for thousands of years, finding that same water meant reading the land, following tracks, and remembering secrets buried generations ago. No GPS, no app, just knowledge, memory, and an incredible understanding of a landscape most of us would find completely unreadable. And somewhere out there, right now, someone is still reading that same land exactly the way their ancestors did. Honestly, it might be one of the most impressive, longest-running survival skill sets in all of human history. Do you think you could survive a single day out on the open savanna, no map, no bottle, nothing but your own senses? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, go check out our video on ancient human strength, since this one connects right into it. And if this made you appreciate your kitchen type a little more, hit subscribe for more stories about how ancient humans actually survived.